Silicosis. Silicosis is caused by inhaling the silica dust. The patient in a working place exposure to the silica dust. With a slowly progressive, they will have nodular fibrosing pneumoconiosis. This slowly progressive with the nodular fibrosing pneumoconiosis caused by the silica dust, we call it silicosis. And this picture showed the patient with the silicas, they will have second pleural and fibrosis. So the second pleural and fibrosis are the markings for a silicosis patient. And you also can find the patient with shortness of breath and severe cough. Majority of them will feel fatigue, so they can't do any work in the working place. And some of them will lose their appetite and sometimes feel chest pains, and some of them will have the fever. And silicosis is caused by free silica chromosomes. These silica chromosomes go inside the body, and the blood cells, the immune systems will go to attack and try to digest the silica, but which in turn develops salicylic acid. This acid in turn kills the blood cells. We talked this before, when a big eater tries to eat the dust, but it's very hard to digest the dust. The dust in turn kills the big eaters. When they kill the big eaters, they can release the different chemicals, such as IL-6, IL-8. And these different factors will damage the lungs and leads to fibrosis. So we still cannot find a good way to help the silicosis patient. Because of these mechanisms, it is very hard to find a way to remove the dust from our body. So fibrosis is the marking for the silicosis and for the pneumoconiosis, and we usually named after associated dust type. The silicosis caused by crystalline silica, and the asbestosis called asbestos, and the coal miners pneumoconiosis caused by the coal. So, where we can find the silica? Occupational exposure to the silica, you may find it in different industries. Metal miners, sandstone and granite cutters, foundry workers and potters. This picture showed a man was digging a hole on the road without a mask. If this dust full of the silica, it may hurt these workers' lungs. It depends on the dust concentration and the exposure time. So, with the concentration and the occupational exposure time, we can classify the silica into 3 different types. The first one called chronic silicosis, the second one called acute silicosis, and another one called accelerated silicosis. The chronic silicosis with 10 or more than 10 years of occupational exposure. And at this situation, the dust concentration is not very high. It should be the low dust concentration with a long-term exposure that will make chronic silicosis. The second one called acute silicosis. The acute silicosis with a higher dust concentration and the exposure time will be shortened, but this acute silicosis is rare and highly fatal. People will die by the acute silicosis soon. Another one called accelerated silicosis. This silicosis progresses of the disease intermediate, commonly associated with acute silicosis, but the concentration is as not high as the acute silicosis, but not low as the chronic silicosis. Between them, that will be accelerated silicosis. And the time occurs after 5 to 10 years of the heavy exposure. Now let's introduce something about the pathogenesis of the silicosis. When workers inhale the silica dust passes into the lungs, and the cells, such as macrophages, try to digest it. At the same time, enzymes and different chemical factors released by the cells cause the lung tissue to have a scar. And the scar, at first, the scarred areas are tiny round lumps. We call it simple nodular silicosis. These tiny round lumps, eventually, they may combine into large masses. This large one will take a long time to complete, then finally be the silicosis patient. So these scarred areas cannot transfer the oxygen into the blood normally, so the lungs at the same time can't breathe normally. They will become less flexible and the breath takes more effort. So the patient with the lungs problem, they can't breathe normally, so they easily get fatigue. And it is very hard for them to keep working. So we will see silicosis patients with the lung fibrosis, and with pathology you will see the silicotic nodules. These silicotic nodules with the different shapes. One is a round shape. This round shape we also call it onion shape appearance, with one layer by another layer. At the first time, you may find more cells inside, but after that, more fibrosis tissue and less cells for the nodule. And you will also find the black spots inside the nodule, suspended everywhere in the nodule. This is a silica dust. Compared to the normal lungs tissue, you will see the structure disappeared. You may not find the normal structure of the lungs, and you only can find the different size of nodule in the lungs. This is another one, showed the big round, and this is a huge round. Besides the regular one, you may also find the irregular one. The irregular one, at last, they also will combine into each other to be the big, large mass